Okay, so hopefully this will capture this so you guys can go back and get it later. I want this screen to disappear. Okay. All right. Well, let's hope this is going to work. All right. Oh, you need power?
I wanted to see if that would help project on.
Yes, that's a very good idea. That's a very real possibility. That just plugging it into the wall will give you some extra oomph. Let's see this one. Don't fall asleep. Okay. Don't fall asleep. All right. So let's just take a look at the controls, the ones that you're going to use most of the time. Okay. It would certainly be better if this was on your screen as well, but we'll do the best we can. You know, you've got multiple tabs up here at the top for controlling various parts of the program. Your math tab here, the one on the far left, the default, is the best place to start. You've got a piece of paper here to work on, and if you can see a little bit better resolution than the projector is showing, you would see a grid on here, boxes. It looks like a piece of graph paper, and you can change the size of the grid, and the grid is really just a place where the cursor is going to snap to the grid. Okay, so if you have a fine grid, you have more control over the position of the cursor. If you have a coarse grid, you have less control, but you don't go cross-eyed looking at all these little lines on the page, right? So it's up to you which way you prefer. Let's go here to the document tab. That's one of the first things that maybe you'd like to deal with. You can either show the grid or not show the grid, so you can hide the grid if you want to. Margins, instead of typing in numbers for the margins, they just give you a couple of standard settings: standard, narrow, and wide. Right? So I typically like to have narrow margins, gives me more room on the page. So my cursor now can come this far to the left and this far to the right. I don't have as much dead white space on the edges. I can fit more information on a page. If you want to leave more room for people to write in the margins, if they were taking notes on your paper, if you're going to hand something in, then you leave more margin, right? You have wide margins, so you have that control. And sometimes, this is important because it'll happen sooner or later. This is in page view mode, right? You see it up here, page view. So you see the page and you see how things are going to lay out, and you can see when it changes from page to page. And at some point you're going to be typing, or you're going to be putting some math on the page, and it's going to be too wide for the page. It's going to want to go off the edge of the page. And then the program will automatically switch to this draft mode where you don't have pages anymore. It's almost like a spreadsheet. It goes on forever, right? It's just as wide as you want it to be. Well, that's fine as long as you're just working on the computer, but if you're going to print this thing, that becomes difficult because now you've got something going off the edge of the page, and the printer's going to do some funny things. So be aware that when it goes to draft mode like this, and you didn't tell it to, it just happens, that means you've got something going off the edge of the page, and if you don't want that to happen, you got to go find it and fix it, okay? Reconfigure things so that it comes back onto the page. You have your zoom setting here, just like you do in most Office programs. And let's go back to the Math tab now that we got this basically set up. In terms of putting text on the page, there are two ways of getting text on the page. you can have a text block. All right, there's a button up there for a text block. You put the cursor on the page where you want the text block to begin. You click on that, and you get this dashed box that goes across the entire page. Okay, and then you just start typing. Come on. And it'll wrap, and you can format to your heart's content. Right? It has all the tools. If you come up here to text formatting, this tab here, you can control what font you're using, bold, italic, underline, the color of the font, highlighting colors, alignment, center, left alignment, right? So you have all the typical formatting controls of a word processor. Okay, so this is a word processor in a sense. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles of Word, but it has a lot. Okay, it's one of the things that they added in these newer releases was some better word processing capabilities, because people use this program to write technical reports, with the advantage that the reports can actually calculate. The digital versions can actually calculate things. Right? So go back to the math. So you have this text block, and the text block will span the entire width of the page. You can also put your cursor somewhere else on the page and hit a text box button, and you'll get a text box here, and this is just like in Word, a text box. You can type into a text box. So I can stretch the box, I can compress the box, and then I can move the box wherever I want it to go, right? So when you're annotating some math, you may have an equation here, and then you can put some text next to it to describe what's going on with the math, which is handy. And again, you can format this text, change the color, change the background in the box, and make things look the way you want them to look. So those are your text tools, text boxes and text blocks. Sometimes, sometimes you want to include some kind of a math expression within your text, right? There are times when you're writing a report and you'd like to include within a line of text some kind of math notation. And so you can do that. Pull this box down here, make it a little wider. So up here on the far left, right there, there's the button that can create a math region within a text box, right? So if I click on that, I'm going to create a new kind of a box within the text box, and that is now a place where I can put in an expression. So I could put in something like y equals, equals 18 times x squared, that whole thing divided by the square root of 36 minus x. All right, so there's a math expression inside a text box, okay? And creating that math expression doesn't take very long once you learn the keystrokes. And this is exactly the kind of thing I'd write on the board, right? This is the real power of this program, is that it gives you math that looks very standard, and it's not hard and cumbersome to create, right? So first, it's a word processor, text boxes, text blocks. You can put math inside of those. Now we want to talk about this math stuff. How do I create a math expression in here? And when you're not in a text box, you just have your cursor out on the page, it assumes that the next thing you're going to type is going to be a math expression. Right? That's its assumption. Right? Unless you tell it, I want to make text by pushing a text box or a text block, it's expecting some kind of math expression. So let's do this. If I were to put in 36 times 18. Now times, that dot, that multiplication dot, is just like in Excel, asterisk, okay? Plus is plus, minus is minus, okay? Division is the /, the same keys that you use for Excel are used here. Exponents are the caret, okay? So all of that stuff still works here. It's very, very easy.
So when we're typing in expressions and equations, is it going to format kind of like the same way it does in Math Excel when you type in the answers? Or when you type it as the...
Math Excel uses the same kind of keystrokes as Excel, right? In terms of multiplication and division. In terms of how things get grouped, right? The big thing here, let's do the simplest thing here. If I wanted to now divide,
Yes.
so if I hit the division key, watch what happens. The 18 goes in the numerator, okay? Just the last thing I typed becomes the numerator, and anything else is left off, okay? And now I can fill in the denominator. If I hit the space bar, and then I've got both of those, you can't see it, they're selected. Unfortunately, it doesn't show that these two are shadowed now. As I hit the space bar, these two get shadowed, and then it groups those two. So simply by hitting the space bar, I select various portions of the expression for the next thing I'm going to do in the math expression. Okay, so I don't have to use parentheses. I can. Parentheses are fine. It understands parentheses. But if I just wanted to do that, I just hit the space bar and see what gets selected, and then work from that. Okay, so the space bar is an important part of the tool here. So let's see. Let's do something like this. How about 3 cubed? And now see, I did 3 cubed, and the cursor is now up here in the exponent. To bring it back down, there are 2 things you can do. The simplest is to hit the right arrow key, and it'll bring the cursor back down to the main level of the calculation. You can also hit the space bar, and it'll move things down.
And you did the power by just doing caret 3, right?
Caret 3,
Perfect.
just like we do in Excel. That's exactly right. So plus 5 raised to the 1/2. So there's a fractional exponent. Okay? So that is a live expression that it can calculate. So what percentage are you at now?
So there's 3 different things. I have one done, the other's about 1%. So I have like a complete one. And they're obviously moving on, so they are. He's actually
All right, so yeah. We may get just you loaded today during class. That's probably all it's going to have. Okay. All right. So see, as I hit, unfortunately you can't see the shading as I hit the space bar. This is shaded now. Then the whole denominator is shaded. Then the whole expression is now shaded. See how the cursor now is over the whole thing. And if I just hit the equal sign, calculates the answer, okay? Now, one of the most confusing aspects of the program is equals. There are a number of different equals in the program, okay? One of the equals is the one I just used, which is just the equal sign that's on the keyboard. That equals is asking the program to tell me what something equals. It's asking the question, what does some expression equal, right? So the regular keyboard equal is the question equals some expression. Right? What does that expression equal? There's another equals where you are telling the program x equals 3. You're not asking what x equals. You're telling the program I'm telling you, program, x equals 3. So anywhere I have x in an equation, you use 3, program. Okay, Mathcad. Right. So there is a different equal symbol. You can even see it's a colon equals. That's the keystroke, colon. When you want to use the equal, when you want to create an equal sign that's telling the program what something equals, you use the colon.
Is x equal 3 only in that math region or for the entire document?
Once you define a variable like this, ever after in the program down, it is used that way, okay? So you need to be aware, 17 pages ago, I defined something, and you forgot that you defined something, and all of a sudden you're getting crazy answers. It's because you defined something.
If you define x as one value, can you define it as a
You can define it as another value later, but that really is risky business because then.
So you just recommend one.
Well, if you have one variable that's going to take on several values, that's where matrices come in. Okay, or a single row matrix is called a vector. So you can assign one variable many different values in a vector. Okay, you could have a 5-element vector, and therefore x would take on 5 different values that you can define, right? And then there's x with a subscript. X0 is the first one in the vector. X1 is the second one in the vector. So we'll talk about that in a minute, right? So those are some of the details, right? So we've got asking what something equals. That's the regular keyboard equal sign. We've got telling the program what something equals. That's the colon. Okay. And let's see here. All right. Operators. See the ribbon selection, operators. Look, there's a derivative, there's an integral, there's a limit, there's a sum, right? All that stuff we've done in the past, right? There it is, okay? So under operators, you have all these math operators, okay? And here are the equal signs. There's the telling what something equals, the colon equals. There's the regular equals that asks the question, what does something equal? This triple lined equals is what's called a global definition. You're telling the program what something equals. So it's kind of like the colon. The difference is when you use the colon, x equals 3 everywhere after that point in the document. When you use this global equal definition, no matter where you put that, you can put it on the last page, it goes back into the beginning of the document and makes and works even above where you defined it. It's global. It works through the whole document no matter where you placed the statement, okay?
Just to check, global has 3 lines, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Yeah, it's hard to see. Yep, that's why, we got to get them on your machines because that's going to be the best. Okay. All right, so there are some equals. Then there's one more kind of equals. The last kind of equals is a symbolic equals, or an equal that doesn't ask anything and it doesn't tell anything. It's just for visual purposes. It's not a programming symbol that's telling the Mathcad to do something. It's just there because you want to write an expression and you want the expression to show an equal sign, but you're not defining anything and you're not asking for it to evaluate anything. You're just writing an expression that requires an equal. It's just a visual equal sign, okay? And the visual equal sign, let's see, okay? All right, it's kind of a bold equal sign, right? And I believe, let's see, I think you can certainly pull this down and just click on this, right? But there's a keystroke, Control, and then the regular keyboard equal, Control equal will give you a visual equal sign, okay? A symbolic equal sign, right? Instead of a programming equal sign. And then you've got greater than, less than, all that kind of stuff. We'll wait on that for a little bit before we talk about that. All right. Let's see. Yeah, in the program, here's a square root sign. Okay, and if you open up these operators, click on that ribbon item, and then you hover over any one of these, it will tell you here in this parenthesis, it will tell you the keyboard shortcut that gets that symbol. So you don't have to always go and hit the ribbon and do it that way. You can learn the keyboard shortcuts to do things. And the square root symbol, right, will give you the symbol if you hit it, and then inside here you have a place to put the number that you want to put in here, and then it gives you a little box out here, and it says if you don't want it to be a square root, you could make it a cube root, you could make it a fourth root, right? So the one symbol covers all the bases. So you would just click your mouse inside whichever box you want to fill in and go from there, right? So we could say, let's see, 125, and let's say we wanted to do the cube root of 125, and then we ask what that equals, and that equals 5. Okay. All right. So, the 4 different kinds of equal signs can get very confusing. So it's pretty important to understand the distinction between those. I mentioned the other day that one of the nice features of the program is that it works with units. If you look up here, there on the ribbon, you've got the units drop-down box. If you click on that, these are all the units that are built into the program, okay? And here's the most important point about this. Look at all of these units here, right? We've got little g for gravity, right? Gravitational field at the surface of the Earth, okay? You've got degrees and radians and revolutions, okay? For area, you've got acres. Here you've got capacitance and farads and nanofarads. Remember physics, right? A lot of physics stuff in here. Coulombs and millicoulombs and nanocoulombs. Conductance, current, there's amps and microamps and so on and so forth, okay? You've got all of these symbols. There's, you know, force, there's newtons, right? There's N for newtons, okay? This program also does algebra, where you define variables. It'll happen, you'll define a variable to be one of these units. But you don't want it to be one of those units. You want it to be something else. But the program is now conflicted, right? Internally, it knows that, like N, you wanted N to stand for something other than a Newton. You're not even thinking of physics, right? You're thinking of N as something else. The number of watermelons in an acre of farmland, right? N is N, sure, of course, yeah, why not? Makes sense. Well, now you've created a world of problems for yourself because you've defined N as something other than what the program internally wants N to be. And it will create, and it'll let you go happily along on your way, and you'll try and calculate some stuff, and you'll get just nonsense for results, okay? So here's the idea. If you want to define a variable, which you're gonna do, right? It's just going to have, that's one of the key uses of the program is to do algebra stuff, not just numeric stuff, but the expressions with variables. Let's say you wanted to use N for something, okay? Type the variable name that you want to use and then ask the program what it equals. So I'm going to hit the regular equal sign on the keyboard, and it comes back and it says N is 1 Newton. N is 1 N. Okay? That means that the program has already defined that as something. Okay? If I pick something that the program hasn't defined yet, let's see, let's try little b, right? Little b. I don't think that's used for anything. Okay? And I say, what does little b equal, program? And it comes back with a question mark. I don't know. You tell me what it equals, right? That means that that variable is available for you to define any way you want. But if it comes back and tells you, oh, N is something that the program already knows, and you haven't defined it previously, then you cannot use that. You cannot use N.
There's no way to tell it to not.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, don't try and do that. Here's what you can do. If you want to use N, then you can certainly add another letter, NA, right? Instead of N, you can just say NA. Well, NA isn't used for anything. See, question mark. I don't know what NA is. So you can define it as NA. You could put a number in there. You could put in N0. Okay? And here's one that we will often use. Right? So there's N0 with N and 0 both uppercase, large. Okay? You can also make a subscript. There's a button for subscript up there. Okay? Subscripts often are used to define variables. So I could say NA, where A is now lowercase and down, NA. And it doesn't, that's not a variable that the program has used anywhere else. I can use that, okay? So subscripts are a very helpful tool for naming variables, okay? And this could be a number, or it could be a letter. It could be a word, you know? N sub down, N sub up, N sub watermelon. I mean, you know, you can, it's up to you, right? You're defining a variable name. There's a lot of freedom there, okay? But subscripts are a common way of naming variables, and that there's a button up there for subscripts, okay? And there's a shortcut key for it as well. Control control hyphen will give you a subscript. It'll drop the cursor down to a lower level. Okay? All right. All right, so let's do this. Do you remember from physics what's a Newton equal? People who've had physics. Remember what it was made? It was a composite. It was made up of other stuff. You could.
Is it kilograms times meters per second squared?
That's right, kilogram meter per second squared. So here, I'm going to do this. Kilogram times meter divided by seconds squared. Right? Kilogram meter per second squared. Then I'm going to ask it, what does that equal? Oh, that equals a Newton. It knows that that's a Newton. Okay? So I can, in my equations, I'm probably going to use Newtons, but I can also use the composites if I want to show those more explicitly, and it understands. Okay? Let's do this. 71 miles. And I just typed 71 mi, and mi is a unit. Okay? And then I'm going to type equals, and I have told the program that the units I want to use, the base units, or the unit system, up here, these two buttons right here, I can choose what system I want to use. English system, metric system, okay? Well, it's set to the metric system right now. And this is a length, 71 miles, and the standard unit of length in the metric system is the meter. So if I say, what does 71 miles equal? It's going to give me the conversion to meters. And it puts the units here, meters, right? I didn't need to multiply and do anything, it just tells me, right? How many meters is 71 miles? That's 1.143 times 10 to the 5. Okay? Oh, I don't want it in meters, I want it in centimeters. Well, I just go in here and change the meters to centimeters, and it changes the exponent to 10 to the 7 from 10 to the 5, right? Because there's 100 centimeters in a meter. Right? I could change the units here to inches. 4.499 times 10 to the 6 inches is 71 miles. Okay? So it does conversions for you very easily, very nicely. Okay? That is a nice feature of the program, right? That it'll keep track of units for you, right? And it does conversions for you easily, right? And if you want to know what a conversion factor is, you can say 1 mile equals, 1 mile is 1.609 times 10 to the 3 meters. Oh, I don't want it in meters, I want it in kilometers. km, 1609, 1.609 kilometers, right? How many feet in a mile? 5,280, right?
So when you're doing things like multiplying two variables together, do you have to include the multiplication symbol, or is it going to read that as a new unit? Like, would you have x, y, or would you have to put x times y?
X times y.
Okay.
If you put xy, it thinks that's a new variable.
I see.
Okay? You have to put, if you want an operation to be done, you must put it in explicitly. The only time you don't is when I put in units here. I put in 1 and then I just typed mi. There's really a multiplication here, 1 times miles. And I didn't have to put that in. I could have typed 1 times mi, right? But I can just type mi and it assumes the multiplication because it recognizes mi as a unit, okay? But if you're doing variables that you've defined somewhere, you've got to put in the operation that you want. Otherwise, if you just put them next to each other, it thinks it's a new variable. You've defined a new variable. Okay. All right, so let's do this. Let's say M1 equals 8 kilograms. A1 equals 13 meters per second squared. There's a mass and an acceleration, right? There's a mass and an acceleration. Kilograms and acceleration, and there are the units, the correct units, right? And I'm going to say F1 equals, and now I'm going to tell it what F1 equals. I'm telling the program what F1 equals. F1 is going to equal M1, lowercase, M1 times A1, right? F equals MA, right? And it just sits there, it doesn't say anything, right? I can do it this way. I can go here and say, oh, then I can hit it equals again, and it'll calculate and tell me. So F1 is defined as being M1 times A1, and then I ask it to calculate it, right? So two different equals in the same expression. One telling, one asking. Or I could just come to a new place on the spreadsheet and say F1 equals, and it gives me, and look, it combined these two units, and it knows that when you multiply kilogram meters per second, we know that's a newton. So it puts newtons in there, okay? If I didn't want to keep it as newtons, I could change it back. I could say kilograms times meters per second squared. And it'll leave it like that. Okay? And I could do this. Instead of a kilogram, I want a gram. Instead of a meter, I want an inch. Instead of a second, I want an hour. Gram inches per hour squared. Boom. And it does the conversion for me. Changes the number. I change the units. It recalculates the number doing the conversions for me.
If you change the unit incorrectly, will that tell you you're wrong?
If I put in something that it doesn't recognize, let's say I put in G instead of GM, right? It's going to, that G, it recognizes as the acceleration due to gravity at the surface of the Earth. That's a defined variable in the program. So it's going to multiply by that, and then it's going to say, well, that has units. Gravitational field of the surface of the Earth has units. And it put those in, and then that changed the units of the whole answer. So if you get screwy results that you don't expect, it may be something like that. You've got a variable that's defined improperly, or maybe you've got a units that's defined improperly. And if you're unsure of what the units are for the program, you go up to that ribbon button up there and you look it up. Okay? You just browse that, and after a while you get used to what it is. Okay. What's that? It's loaded now?
It said I hit the finish button.
Okay. Good. All right, so here. See, this box went off the edge of the screen, and now it changed to that draft mode. Right? It went beyond the edge, so it said, all right, I need some more paper space here. So it went from page mode back to the draft mode. Now here's a very important point. Very important point. Let me move some things here. Now, here's just a very useful thing to know. If I click and drag across some areas, some regions, it'll select whatever regions I drag across, okay? And now I can put my cursor at the edge of the region and drag the whole region anywhere I want to go, okay? So it's very easy to move stuff around on the page, okay? Now, I have defined this F1 here. And I've asked the program to tell me what F1 equals down here, and it's all screwed up here. Let me undo what I did before. Okay, there. F1 is defined at this point in the program. The program only knows what F1 is below here. If I were to ask what F1 equals there, it's on the same line as this, but it's to the left, right? This only knows what F1 equals to the right of where it's defined and down. So if I am asking, but I'm not to the right and down of the definition statement, this hasn't, I have no idea what, I don't know what F1 is, okay?
Okay, what if you want to define F1 around that area, but not all the way down or all the way to the right? Is there a way to do that, or is it just?
To define F1? Yeah, I can drag F1 anywhere I want on the page, and so if I'm having trouble, I can stick it here, and then this other one, I'll give it a little more space, you know, drag that down. So positioning the things on the page, the point I'm trying to make is where you put stuff on the page. You may want to put things on the page in a certain way visually, but it may mess up the way the program understands it. So you want to make sure that if you're defining some new variable or some new expression, that you don't ask for the value or use that somewhere that's not to the right or down from the definition statement.
Okay.
All right? Otherwise, the program doesn't know. It won't understand. Okay? Unless you use the global equal here in this definition, then it wouldn't make any difference. Okay. All right.
So then is it best to use each page for a different equation, and you have to, because you wouldn't want to do more than one problem on the same page?
Well, you can. It depends on how much there is. But if between, you can get multiple problems on a page as long as there's enough room for some blank space between the problems so they don't run together. If they run together, it's just bad visually. You can't separate stuff out. Okay, so, but if you can get, you know, a couple of lines in between the end of one problem, the beginning of another one, that's typically not a problem. The issue is, if you're going to try and do a homework set and you've got 10 problems, and you define F1 for problem 1, and you want to use F1 in problem 6, you're going to have a problem, right? Again, you're trying to use the same variable in multiple problems. So what I typically do is, if I want to use F in a number of problems, it's F1 in the first problem, it'll be F6 in problem 6, okay? Or F sub 6, right? So I just define it so that it's appropriate for the problem I'm working on.
Okay. And when you type in, sorry.
No, that's good. Good
when
question.
you type in the letter F and the number 1, it takes that as a whole.
That's right.
It
It's
just
the,
defines
because
it.
you haven't put anything between them. There's no space between. There's no operators between. It just sees those together as you've named something. That's a name, a label.
So if I put in like platypus.
Yes. You could put a whole word in.
Okay.
Exactly right. Exactly. What it won't accept is 2 words where you have a space between them. Once you hit space, it's going to want to think that this is now a text block. Okay, as opposed to a math block, right? Okay, good. So we have the ability to define variables. You have to be careful of the names that you use because the program already has certain letters used for units and other internal purposes. So you can find out by asking the program if it already has it used, as I showed you. And as long as it's not conflicting with the program, you can define variable names, and then you can tell the program that a variable name has a certain numeric value, and you can include units. And then you can use those variable names in expressions and calculate, and you can, you can get whatever set of units that you want, and it will do conversions for you. Let's talk about. Yeah, we're about done. I don't want to start something new yet. No, we're just about finished. So that's good for the moment. That's good for the moment. We'll talk about matrices and vectors and subscripts next time. Okay, that'll be an important point for us as well. So, is it loaded?
It is.
Does it allow you to get a free trial or not?
I'm not sure. I'm signing up to the point where I can see the will, but I'm thinking
It wants the license key.
it looks like it.
You can't use the program unless you have the license key. Okay, so we're just gonna have to wait. It wants the license key. All right, so there's the free version, the Express program. If your disk doesn't come before Friday's class, okay, then it'll be better for you to have the Express program, because the stuff we're going over right now, that program has the same stuff in it, right? There are other things it doesn't have, but we're just getting started. So that program has that stuff in it, okay? So if your disk doesn't come before Friday, then you may want to load the Express program, okay? And then we'll have to see, you should be able to load, the full version, even if you've got the Express version loaded. That shouldn't be a problem, right? So it's definitely going to be better for you if you have the working program, at least some level of the working program in front of you for Friday, right? Okay. So if you got it from PTC, you have a 1-year subscription. Is that what they give you? And you can download it from that site, right? Okay. If you want to buy the program and own it forever, you got to get it from the academic software site, right? But then you got to wait for the disk to come.
I was gonna say I was worried because I got it from PTC and I was like, I don't think they're sending a disk, but it's all downloaded. I don't think it's.
Yeah, it's all downloadable,
Yeah.
right? So you bought the subscription.
Yes.
Okay, so you just need Windows 10.
Yeah, which looks like I'll be able. If I have trouble with it, I'll
Okay,
stop by.
please do. Okay, good. And Blair, you're going to have a new computer by Friday, you think?
Yes, I'm heading down to the Best Buy on Thursday.
Good for you. What are you going to get?
Whatever is less than $200.
Okay, good deal. They have that.
Okay,
They have that. You can find that.
saving.
All right? Yeah, you got to save money. That's exactly right.
Even if it only lasts a semester.
That's
what I need.
fine. That's all you need. That's all you need. It what?
I said, I have something open to PTC, Mathcad Express, trying to pick one. That Express is trying.
So you've loaded Prime.
I guess.
Oh, you loaded the Express.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, that's the free version.
Okay, I think I had both of them. Like, you can register. Okay, can you copy?
Once you register, it becomes the full version.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
so we can use the disk, right? We can use the disk. You can download the Express, or I've got the disk, and when you load it, if you don't have a license key, it will limit it to the Express functionality, and then when you get your license key, you just plug it in, and it'll become the full program at that point. Okay? So, Alex, if you want to grab that disk, you want to come by my office?
Have it in here
You have it?
right now, but
Okay, yeah, so go ahead and load it. Yeah, that's good.
it'll take a while.
Yeah, so what do you have next?
Well, chapter 9.
Oh, that's right. So let it run, okay? If you want to bring it down by my office, so we can leave it in there while we go to chapel, all right? Okay, thanks, guys, appreciate it. Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
So we'll see if this recording took.
If it
Okay.
doesn't, I think I can remember this, because it all seems fairly user-friendly, intuitive.
Yeah, it's a well-done program. It's come a long way over the years, and it's a pretty well-written program.
There's a lot of programs that I look at, and I'm like, this would be cool if I were going into industry, but I'm not gonna learn it now. But this
Right.
seems like something I really wanna learn.
I know.
Well, this can be useful for a lot of things.
Yeah, that's why I wanna actually
This-
buy it.
this-
so I can keep it.
Yeah, this program I think is worth owning. I've used this for years, and it's been changed over the years, and a different company bought out the original company and stuff, but it still continues to be very useful.
I'm excited. I was terrified, but now I'm excited.
Good. Yeah, hopefully it just becomes a good tool.
The semester is gotten better already.
And
Good.
I'm excited about all my major classes, like the intermediate micro.
Yeah, you can use it in those. Absolutely, you can use it in those classes.
Yeah.
Absolutely
You
right.
will. You will.
That will be helpful.
See you, Dr. Moore.
Take it easy.
Do you want me to bring this down to your office?
Yeah, that way you can feel comfortable that it's not going to disappear on you or anything, right? And but it'll still be running, right? So we can make some progress.